Welcome and thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Lee Lowry and I am the Executive Director of the American School Health Association. We're pleased to present today's webinar, Local Wellness Policies and Whole School, Whole Community, Whole Child. Before we get started, I'd like to share a little bit about the American School Health Association. Otherwise known as AFHK, we are the only organization that addresses multiple disciplines in school health and that is devoted solely to school health. Our membership of approximately 800 individuals represents school health as administrators at the local, state, and national levels, as health and education professionals in a pre-K through 12 school setting, and as academics who conduct research that informs school health professionals. We're also the proud publishers of the Journal of School Health, a premier journal in the area of school and adolescent health. As an additional resource to this webinar, AFHK published a special issue of JOSH dedicated to the WSCC model in November 2015. The issue is open to the public and you can find it on our webinar, www.afhkweb.org. I'm just going to check in real quick. Jill, can you see my slides?
I cannot.
Can't, okay. Let me make sure people can see it. Can you see it now?
There we go. Now they're up.
See it, okay. All right, great. I just got to check in on that. Sorry about that, everyone. All right. On. Members of AFHK can elect to receive a hard copy of it or an electronic copy of the journal. Our membership fee is inexpensive and provides you access to the journal and also to our biweekly e-newsletter, School Health Action, as well as free continuing education hours through approved webinars like today and through CE qualifying JOSH articles. If you haven't already, please consider joining, volunteering, and becoming a member of the AFHK community. Visit us at afhkweb.org to learn more. During our 2015 conference, we had a handful of breakout sessions that reviewed the Whole School, Whole Community, Whole Child, or WSCC for short, model, with ideas and examples on how to integrate it in districts and schools. We also featured the CDC's Dr. Wayne Giles as a keynote speaker who discussed the WSCC model and provided the critical next steps to advancing student health and learning. Consider joining us for our 2016 conference, which will be held October 6th through 8th in Baltimore, Maryland, and meet, share, and inspire ideas and conversation with like-minded school health professionals. And please note, if you are interested in submitting a session proposal, our call for papers will open in just a few weeks. As I mentioned, the continuing education credit for today's webinar is free for all members. If you are a non-member and you would like to receive CE credit or certificate of attendance for this webinar, we require a payment of $30. After the webinar, you can receive one Category 1 Advanced CECH for MCHES and CHES, one contact hour for Continuing Nursing Education, or CNE, one Continuing Professional Education hour for Registered Dietitians, or a certificate of attendance based on 70% or more participation today. Participation is measured by the amount of time the webinar remains active on your screen. We'll provide details for obtaining CE in a post-webinar email that will go out this week. Before you meet today's speaker, I'd like to share a little bit about a framework that unites AFHK's diverse membership. AFHK believes that schools have a responsibility to meet the needs of the whole child. Whole School, Whole Community, Whole Child model developed jointly by the CDC and ASCD provides a framework for the health and education sectors at the state and local levels to work towards stronger alignment, integration, and collaboration. This approach puts the student in the center. The goal is to ensure that all students are safe, healthy, engaged, supported, and challenged. This holistic and synergistic approach requires schools, students, families, and community partners to focus on improving both health and educational outcomes and to create schools that nurture and support all students. It is a team effort, and collaboration is the key to success. A multidisciplinary approach that involves school nurses, counselors, health educators, physical educators, community experts, administrators, and students can better leverage resources and expertise to address the needs of the whole child, meeting the child's physical, emotional, social, and academic needs. Using the knowledge and wisdom of this school health team, schools can develop policies and programs that support all students, keep them safe from physical or emotional harm, and empower them to take responsibility for their own health and well-being. The WSCC model requires that school programs, policies, and practices be focused on meeting the needs of the whole child. Okay, a couple of notes before we begin. Your phones will remain muted for the duration of this 60-minute webinar. We're recording today's session, and we will send you a link to the recording as well as to the evaluation survey within the next couple of days. We're delighted to have Jill Camber Davidson, who is a school program manager from Action for Healthy Kids, with us today. Here's a short introduction of Jill. Jill joined Action for Healthy Kids in September 2011. She's a registered dietitian with over 20 years of diverse nutrition and public health experience. Prior to joining Action for Healthy Kids, Jill worked as a state nutrition director a state nutrition education consultant and team nutrition director, nutrition and food services director, and in clinical nutrition. Jill has certificates in adult and pediatric and adolescent weight management from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Jill is also an active volunteer and leader with local, state, and national nutrition and wellness groups, and is passionate about child nutrition and wellness. She's been recognized by her peers as a recognized Young Dietitian of the Year in 1994 and as the Wisconsin Medallion Outstanding Dietitian of the Year in 2011. She graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in dietetics, agricultural journalism, and completed her dietetic internship at UW hospitals and clinics. On a personal level, Jill keeps up with her two daughters' activities and is involved actively in numerous local school and community groups. She served 2 terms as an elected school board member and also is a member of her district wellness committee, school parent groups, and other school district-related task forces and groups. She is also a BIG with Big Brothers Big Sisters program. Thank you for joining us, Jill. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Lee. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so pleased we had such a great turnout for this webinar. As we just heard, the whole school, whole community, whole child, or WSCC model combines and builds on elements of the traditional coordinated school health approach and whole child framework. Today, I'm going to talk about local wellness policies and how they are an integral component of a healthy school and support the whole child. This webinar will review local wellness policy rules and the Action for Healthy Kids Wellness Policy Tool and provide insight into wellness policy committee work and its work. We will also look at how wellness policies fit with coordinated school health programs and the whole child approach to education. Next slide, please. We all know this, that when children's basic nutritional and fitness needs are met, they attain higher achievement levels. But the question comes down to how do we meet their nutritional and fitness needs? Often, we look to policy to help us. Next slide, please. Let's start off by talking about school district policy. Policies provide specific guidance towards implementing strategies to achieve the district's mission and to control behaviors of the district, such as students, staff, parents, and community members. A wellness policy is the official stance of the district on nutrition and physical education and physical activity and provides details on what is expected and what is acceptable in the district. We look at creating safe and supportive school environments to improve student academic achievement. That is a common goal of administrators, our educators, our school board members, our parents, and our state agency staff alike. So when you work with a district, think about the goals that you have to increase student achievement. Think about school improvement plans. And I always ask this question, is school wellness part of the school improvement plan? And if not, how can we work to include school health and wellness in those school improvement plans? A healthy school environment includes nutrition education, nutritious school food, daily opportunities to be physically active, programs to promote wellness, healthy fundraising, and school-wide support. Some aspects of a healthy school environment are covered under state and federal legislation. One such regulation is the Smart Action Tool. A local school wellness policy is a written document of the official policies that guide a local school or the school district effort to establish a school environment that promotes students' health, well-being, and the ability to learn, and supports healthy eating and physical activity. So if we look at local school wellness policies, nearly all school districts are in compliance. In fact, 99% of students are enrolled in a school district with the wellness policy. While school districts are doing very well with this, it's where the compliance issues are happening that we want to take a deeper look. Policies vary widely in strength and quality. And when I talk about strength, I mean required versus recommend, suggest as language, and quality looking at specific evidence-based strategies to carry out the ideas and the components of the policy. A local wellness policy will include several things that you see here on the slide, and we'll spend the next few minutes reviewing these federal requirements. In 2004, Congress recognized that schools play a critical role in promoting school health, preventing childhood obesity, and combating problems associated with poor nutrition and physical activity. Therefore, school districts were required by Congress to have a local wellness policy in place by the 2006-2007 school year. This mandate was a milestone in the federal government's effort to address childhood obesity through school environments. And local wellness policies are an important tool to address this physical activity, nutrition, and childhood obesity. To start looking at these policies, and we say they need to have goals for nutrition promotion and education, physical activity and school wellness activities. They need to have goals for nutrition guidelines for all foods on the school campus during the school day. They need to permit a variety of stakeholders, such as parents, students, teachers, school board members, and the general public to participate in the development, implementation, review, and updating of the policy. And they need to inform and update the public about the policy content and the implementation progress. And all schools and school districts must periodically measure and report on the implementation. But these requirements are really just a framework, and each school district will develop their own specific criteria for each of these goals. Then, after the 2004 law, we have the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. And the 2004 law was pivotal in addressing obesity prevention in schools, but it was criticized that it lacked accountability, monitoring, and implementation. So in the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, there were 6 major federal nutrition programs that were reauthorized, including local wellness policies. And the local wellness policies were strengthened so they became more useful to evaluate, establish, and maintain a healthy school environment. And there's now some transparency to the public on key areas that affect the nutrition environment in each school. So school districts are now required to inform and update the public on the content, the implementation, and the assessment of their local wellness policies. Since 2004, the focus had been tackling old policies that were strong and high quality. But now we know all school districts, 99% of them, pretty much have a local wellness policy. So we really want to focus on implementing the policy. So thinking about this, how many school districts have a policy on file or a policy on the books? But really nothing's happening in the school building itself. And nothing is happening in terms of what is impacting the child at that school. So we have a proposed rule that was released to further define the items in the 2010 law, including information on nutrition promotion and clarification on frequency for reviewing policies, model policies, and other parts of the policy. Right now, we are still waiting for a final rule. So to help people through the policy process and make sense of all these requirements and what's been happening, Action for Healthy Kids has a wellness policy tool. And you see that here on the screen. It is a free tool on our website that you can use. And it addresses all these requirements in the 2010 Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act related to wellness policies. And these requirements, by the way, are the floor of what school districts can put into district policy. The policy process can be lengthy and challenging, especially if the Wellness Committee does not have administrative guidance. So how does a policy get written and on the book? That's where we're going to start looking at this wellness policy tool. As I said, it's available online at www.actionforhealthykids.org. The tool has 7 steps, and embedded into each step are pertinent resources to help users be successful in writing, adopting, and implementing their policy to meet the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act requirements. This tool can be used independently by schools and districts, and also in training settings. So here is a picture of the tool. I like to call it the 7 steps to success. And we'll go briefly through these steps today. And keep in mind, this is just a cursory review. And then we're going to look at how this fits in with the WISC model. The Wellness Policy tool online has many more resources and details that you can look at. So let's look at step 1, build strong teams. This is where we start. A team may come into existence through school board delegation, official mandate, or request by an administrator, such as the district food and nutrition services, by the public, or by a parent request. The primary objective driving the step is to collect a diverse group of people to serve on the team. The federal legislation, in fact, requires that parents and administrators contribute to the development process. And according to the USDA Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, districts are now required to allow teachers of physical education and school health professionals to be able to participate, as well as parents, students, and representatives of the school food authority, the school board, school administrators, and the public. And people are invited to participate in the development, review, and update of wellness policies. Oftentimes, the superintendent or the school board decides or designates who will serve on the team. So we start looking at teams. I ask people to consider their membership and propose making some adjustments if it doesn't reflect a diversity of interests. Thinking again about the child and the impact and influence on the child in school. Are there people on the wellness committee that have contacts with children in school? Are there people that work with children in school? A wellness committee deals much more than school food issues, and the membership should be able to relate to these multitude of wellness topics. So we ask the question, who needs to be at the table to make healthy students and healthy schools a priority? And again, thinking of when building that team, consider the roles and representation needed. The district team has a broad role and looks overall how the policies roll out to school. But you may have a school team that focuses on the school's culture and community, and this is really where the implementation happens. School representation and communication and feedback at the district level is something to consider for a cohesive approach. And again, if you're ready as part of a team, look around at the next meeting. Who's there? Who will make healthy students and healthy schools a priority? And who is missing? Going on to step 2, assessing the environment. So once you have your wellness team, look and see what the aspects of your district's current policies and practices concerning nutrition, physical activity, and nutrition education are working and what needs to be improved. This is one of the most important steps to help you develop and implement a policy that will fit your district's needs. This goal is to understand what you need to do, why you need to make revisions, and how to update the policy effectively. When you take that inventory, you really want to identify what influences, positive and negative, are on healthy eating and physical activity at school. So look at what your district is already doing. What's good? What's happening? And what needs to be done differently? Assessing these wellness environment areas makes it possible to focus specifically on areas that need improvement. And you can also use this assessment time to look at other areas of the school and use other assessments. The School Health Index from CDC, as well as the modified versions that we have here at Action for Healthy Kids and also the Alliance for the Healthier Generation, also look at different areas of the school environment and provide a way to get a baseline. And this baseline data is vital to monitor trends and changes in attitudes and behaviors at the school level. Then you can look at district needs and set up a district needs assessment to evaluate various elements of your school or district performance, and then develop action plans for each area. When you look at your environmental assessment, take the time to identify and inventory those influences. A well-done assessment will help you identify and define the problem or issue that necessitates the development or revision of a policy. And that's what you really want to get is, what part of the policy do we need to change? Districts may need help in assessing what's relevant to issues at hand. And that's where state agency people can really help out to identify those areas for improvement, as well as providing training sessions to help foster sharing on what other districts are doing, what is happening at the state and national level, and other policies that may be relevant to identified issues. If we look at a healthy school environment, we know it includes nutrition education, nutritious school food, daily opportunities to be physically active, programs to promote wellness, healthy fundraising, and school-wide support of all these efforts. Some aspects of a healthy school environment are covered under state and federal legislation, such as a wellness policy. One such regulation is the smart snacks in schools. So if we look at a school environment, CDC actually has some recommended strategies to help us so we can define a healthy environment. So I have some of those here in terms of access to healthy foods and physical activity at school, suitable facilities for healthy eating, and this includes enough space for every child to be able to eat. Suitable seating, cafeteria that's clean and present. And students should be able to enjoy the social aspects of dining without whistles or eating under silence orders. Safe spaces and facilities for physical activity. This includes the gym and the equipment there, but the playground as well, and the areas around the school for play. Teachers do not use physical activity as punishment or deny physical activity opportunities as a form of punishment. And food is not used as an item to reward students, and this can include coupons and extra parties and things like that. Additional areas related to health include a healthy body image that's promoted among students. Schools are accepting of diverse body sizes and shapes, and schools implement a universal school bullying policy to discourage students from bullying other students about their weight or body size. Some tools to use, as I mentioned, the School Health Index and the WellSat, and the new WellSat I, which is the implementation part of the WellSat. So once you have that assessment and you have that data, you bring it back to your committee and say, okay, where does it fit with our policy? And that's where schools and districts may struggle and need a little bit of assistance. So you have to review this wellness policy, match it up with the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, and think about what do we need to change based on our assessment. How can we set our district goals and expectations? Typically, policy is owned by the school board. Policy is a widespread application and is the formal guidance for the district. That's really the operational framework. When you draft that policy, you need to also think about the corresponding procedure to outline all the details for implementation of the policy. And this is really what's delegated and carried out by the district administration, and then it filters down to the school level, where we see it in day-to-day operational processes. Creating a policy district that spells out what you want to accomplish, district-wide, is what you want to do, and avoid the vague language. For example, if you're using healthy food, define what healthy means. Instead of using words like recommend, encourage, or promote, that really don't require schools to implement the changes. Use words like will, shall, must, and require to ensure that schools will comply with what's happening. And this is spelled out in the Red Center's WellSat assessment tool, which is available online as part of our wellness policy tool. You just link to the WellSat tool. So you can review your policy yourself to look at strengths of language. When you are reviewing wellness policies, there is requirements that they be developed and implemented by local parents, teachers, administrators, school food service, school boards, and the public. This is a big list, but this provides some flexibility for local schools and districts to develop a policy that meets their unique circumstances, their challenges, and opportunities. And many of these challenges and opportunities as identified in the assessment done in Step 2. This also provides flexibility for the district to implement guidance and expectations beyond the federal minimum. And this is where that list model comes in place, as you look at what is required or the floor, and how do you add more things for guidance and expectations into your wellness policy to really foster the whole child. It's important to note that although policy was mandated by law, it does not include funding or method of enforcement. So it may not actually exist in your district, or it may exist on paper only. So again, look and see how things are happening now as part of your assessment. And then when you go in and look at the language, say what are we doing in reality versus what's on paper, and how do we set goals to get to where we want to be. Some schools may have adopted health and wellness guidelines or goals on their own. And some states are beginning to require or recommend that health and wellness goals be included in improvement plans or measured as part of school accountability systems. If you're looking for guidance in terms of what can be put into wellness policies and some ideas, in 2011, CDC released the School Health Guidance to promote healthy eating and physical activity. This is an excellent resource for use during your policy process, especially when writing and revising. And this guidance here is based on scientific research and expert opinion, and it's very supportive of a school environment for healthy eating and physical activity. There are 9 guidelines included in the report, and each guideline is supported by a series of implementation strategies and actions. You can see the 9 guidelines here on the slide, and use these guidelines to identify evidence-based policies and practices to align your goals of your local wellness policy. Some evidence-based strategies from the guidelines you could potentially incorporate into your local wellness policy include adding a point-of-purchase prompt for healthy market options, setting nutrition standards for fundraisers. While your state may allow for exemptions as part of Smart Snacks, the district can still set stronger guidelines for fundraisers in their own wellness policy. Or mandating or putting in your policy that all elementary school students have 20 minutes of recess every day. Or looking at time to eat, at least 20 minutes to eat lunch and 10 minutes to eat breakfast after being seated. Putting in your policy, only non-food items will be used for rewards. And then establishing nutrition standards for classroom parties. These guidelines support the Action for Healthy Kids Wellness Policy tool on their process of creating that team to draft, implement, and monitor the local wellness policy. Once you have that policy revised and written, you need to make it official. And that is step 4. That's when you get the policy adopted. And this is when it goes to the board or other governing body to be approved. And you have to have it forwarded through the proper channels, which may take some time. Part of that process is educating your own school board administration on the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, the wellness policy requirements, your own policy, and most importantly, the connection between healthy students and academic performance. Ask your administrators to commit to your vision or this policy's vision of a healthy school environment. And also take the time to fully address the board's issues and concerns. And if you collaborate with other members of the community, such as your parent groups, wellness centers, local dietitians, to leverage your efforts, you will be very successful in getting this policy adopted. The adopting the policy is the official acceptance and the designation of authority to enforce the policy. Enforcement of a policy may happen at the school or district level, and there may be state and federal funding and sanctions based on compliance. For example, the review process for your school meals program, they do ask to see your wellness policy and what you've done in terms of implementation. They may ask to see minutes of your meetings. Your policy and procedure need to reflect your levels of hierarchy in terms of who is going to enforce the policy and what is being done. And I can say congratulations, your policy has been adopted, but you're not done yet. This is where many districts may stop and struggle, especially if they have a cookie cutter type policy or do not have stakeholder support. But really, when we move on to step 5, implementation, this is really where the rubber hits the road. This is where we put our plans into action. There are some implementation pieces addressed in the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act. But as I said just earlier, adoption of the policy does not require or does not guarantee that the policy will be carried out and enforced. Once your policy has been adopted, you really have to look at how do you put that policy language into action to truly impact school wellness practices. So thinking of that process, does your district have an action plan for wellness policy implementation? Does it have involvement, again, of all the levels of parents, students, administrators, community in the implementation process? What are your wellness goals? Who's responsible for the activities or enforcing the policy? And what are, some things that you're doing now that you can keep doing or want to strengthen over the next year? And then look at some different benchmarks. Since I said before, since virtually all schools have a policy, focus on implementation is really where we're putting our focus and our work for this next year. And the interesting piece, as you can see here, the district official or officials are designated as responsible for monitoring their schools to ensure they are in compliance with the law. School districts are now held accountable for ensuring that schools do what they say they're going to do in their policy. And they're held accountable to not only a state agent, but also the public. So you set your course, you put your policy in action, and you look at action plans that include SMART goals. You look at your committee meetings and taking minutes and saving those minutes. And look at your own type of review that you can see if you're meeting your goals, or that you can reflect on what your goals are and the process made. In many respects, the real work and value of policy development team begins when a policy is adopted, put in place, and implemented. Obviously, the policy is a means to an end. What you're actually trying to achieve are healthier, happier children, equipped with an understanding of nutrition and lifelong habits for healthy living. The work now is really to put an action plan into work to make the policy live and breathe and really work at the school level. And that's what we want to do in step 6. So we have the policy, we have it implemented, we're doing many things to make our kids healthier, make our environment healthier. Let's see how it's really working. We want to measure and evaluate. How does your district know that your wellness policy is making a difference? Are you doing what you plan to do? The Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act requires that you develop a plan to measure the implementation of the policy, which includes designating one or more persons with the responsibility for ensuring that the schools meet the federal requirements of the wellness policy process. And oftentimes, districts will go and put the school nutrition director in charge of this, when in reality, they need someone at the school level who has the authority to really make the decisions about the whole school environment. So it's one thing when you look at measuring and evaluating, do we have everybody we need involved? And do we have the right people at the table involved with this process? A good evaluation plan doesn't need to be extensive, it doesn't need to be formal, or doesn't need to put undue burdens on staff. Monitoring results is an ongoing process. And often I tell people, look at what you're already collecting for data. Can this help you to monitor your process? For example, attendance data. You can look at kids that eat breakfast in the morning and how many tardies do you have versus when they don't have breakfast, or breakfast in the classroom programs. Does it affect behavior? Does it affect the number of visits to the nurse? That kind of information can be very helpful to evaluate how your process is going and any steps you need to make additional changes. You can also consider the use of a standardized review process, such as state or national level awards, such as the Healthier U.S. School Challenge, and use this to set benchmarks for review as part of your plan. And don't forget to assess students, parent, teacher, and administration satisfaction with the new policies as well. So when measuring success, your policy must establish a plan to measure implementation, including that designation, charged with operational responsibility for ensuring that the school meets the policy. And policies are not static. What you think is a good policy may not, in fact, produce the results you hope for. So be aware of these unintended consequences and really critically evaluate your policy, its implementation, and its outcomes on an ongoing basis. Earlier in the presentation, you heard that law requires the district to appoint at least one person who will be responsible for the success. As I said, and I want to really emphasize, this person needs to have the authority to implement and enforce the policy at the school level. Now this brings us to step 7, communicating the results. And this step, although it sounds simple, may actually be the most difficult, and often is the step that's most often forgotten. Local education agencies are required to inform and update the public, including parents, students, and others in the community, about the content and implementation of their wellness policy. Proactive communication will inform, educate, and build support for your wellness efforts. Sharing the results of policy implementation is a federal requirement, but you can go beyond that. You can share not only implementation, but you can share success stories, you can share different things that are happening at the schools, and really look at it from all angles. Indeed, local education agencies are required to measure periodically and make available to the public an assessment on the implementation of the wellness policy, but also look at other ways to inform districts, not only how you're in compliance, but how your district compares to model policy, or progress made in attaining the different goals of your policy. And again, keeping it very positive and sharing the successes really help to communicate that message. Keeping everyone informed and up to date on your state of your district's wellness policy implementation process may seem overwhelming, but consider the messaging options in your district are already in place. All of these are suitable ways to share the message. For example, if you have district newsletters or school newsletters or a Facebook page or a web page, perfect place to share some of these messages and what's happening. And then remember to save copies of your communications and documents of the audience reached for your annual review. So we've gone through the policy process very quickly, I should say, but we did take a look, and we're back at step 1. And you may think, oh, we're done, but rather this policy process is ongoing and doesn't end at step 7. You've come full circle. You're back to where, again, you're going to make sure your right people are at the table. So you take your lessons learned through this cycle to strengthen and sustain your efforts of building your policy. I just want to take a moment to remind you here, if you have any questions, please enter them into the chat box, and we will get to them at the end of the webinar, because I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about not only the wellness policy process, but how it fits in with the WISC model. You can start to see when we talked about the process, how the wellness policies can exist to foster healthy school environments and healthy students. And you can see how they would start to be looked at as part of the WISC model. The WISC model actually includes 10 components, expanding upon the CDC's coordinated school health components of healthy and safe school environment and family community involvement. And this evolution met the need for greater emphasis on both psychosocial and physical environment, as well as the ever-increasing and growing roles that community agencies and families must play. We see that also in wellness committee work. We have many community people that come together to help with wellness work in schools. And family representation is very important in wellness committee work. Because if we want to change that school environment, we need to have the parents on board and help us set those expectations for healthy behaviors. The WISC model also addresses the need to engage students as active participants in their learning and health. And this is also true for the wellness policy process. We need students to be part of the policy process for policies to be effective. So let's look at the 10 components a little deeper. How does the wellness policy process fit in? Actually, there's a lot of overlap. And I didn't put much on this slide for fear of getting it too cluttered, but I wanted to do some indications in terms of looking at step 1, building a strong team. And we need community input and family involvement. So I drew the arrow back and forth from the community piece and community involvement. And this is where we have that communication coming back. We need those people on the team. We need them to support the efforts we're making towards a healthy environment. We need them to be supportive of those changes and help engage others to carry out the process. Employee wellness is another area where both the WISC model and building a strong team are important. Employee wellness activities can be part of a wellness committee's work. And employees are role models for students, and often this is part of many wellness policies. The Wellness Committee can serve as a structure for wellness activities and provide support for human resource policy about wellness. Another area to look at is the social and psychological services. Many wellness committees will stick strictly to nutrition and physical activity and miss the opportunity to address hunger, poverty, and mental health issues. For example, a wellness committee may work on a weekend backpack program that, snack items and nutrition education gets at home with students. And many times these backpacks are available to anybody who wishes to take one. And it can be something that can be coordinated under your wellness committee. We could go through all steps of the wellness policy tool and address how they fit with each of the components. Some components are natural fits. You see the hearts and the stars on the guideline here in terms of health education, physical education, nutrition, environment and services, and health services. Those are a natural fit with any one of the steps of the process. Others may need a little thought, such as inviting building and grounds, maintenance, or custodial staff to your wellness committee meeting. You may think, why would I invite them? They think of their input on food waste in the cafeteria, or the conditions of the playground. Or how about facility use in terms of who's using the facility, or water fountain maintenance? These are all pieces that fit into wellness, but they also fit into what we're looking at for that whole child support. So the Wellness Committee may help to prioritize and support the work of many different departments in relationship to a student's overall well-being. As we heard earlier, the new WISC model focuses on the child. It emphasizes a school-wide approach rather than one that's subject or location specific. And it acknowledges the position of learning, health, and the school as all being a part and reflection of the local community. The efforts to address the educational and health needs of young youth should be seen as a school-wide endeavor, as opposed to being confined to a subject or just a sector. This is also true for wellness policy work. Wellness policies need to be school-wide, not just nutrition or physical activity in a vacuum, rather than being an initiative owned by one teacher or the nurse or the nutrition department. The WISC model and the wellness policy tool outline the whole school approach, with every adult and every student playing a role. And we look at the growth and development of students, peers, and the school overall as part of these models. Just as the whole school plays its part, the new WISC model outlines how the school, staff, and students are placed within local community. While the school may be a hub, it remains a focal reflection of its community and requires community input, resources, and collaboration in order to support students. As with any relationship, this works both ways. Community strengths can boast the role and potential of the school, but areas of need in the community also become reflected in the school, and they must be addressed. Same is true with the wellness policies. As I said earlier, we look at poverty, we look at hunger, we look at needs for playgrounds or facility use. All these areas or needs in the community can be reflected in the wellness policy. So I'd like to give you an example, looking at the WISC model to encourage nutrition education and positive, consistent food messaging, to helping kids meet success in the classroom and beyond. So really integrating health into schools to give kids an academic advantage. I wanted to use the hot topic with wellness policies right now, which is fundraising. Many schools and districts are struggling with how do you get fundraising to be healthy, and how do you address, the 10 tenets of the WISC model with a healthy fundraiser. I'm going to tell you about the Rocket Run, the fun run. And this is actually a school, I have the good knowledge of the history of it. And about 10 years ago, this school rose to the top in terms of wellness challenges that they wanted to start changing their environment. But they still were selling cookie dough as a fundraiser. And it really was a disconnect in terms of supporting a healthy child and a healthy message. And being involved in the parent group, as I was at the time, I wanted to get rid of the cookie dough and said, let's just not do it, and had a lot of pushback from different people. And part of the problem was I didn't have a good alternative. I didn't really look at the effects of how it affected the kids and what was happening. I said I don't want to sell cookie dough because it's not healthy. As things moved along and wellness policies came into place, culture did change at this school. And of course we had wellness policies and different things changed. But a parent stepped up to organize a fun run and put many pieces together that really fit with the WISC model in terms of focusing on the child, and brought in parents to help and volunteer, and invited the community to come and cheer and make signs, invited community partners to match donations for running laps, really made it all-encompassing fun day. And long story short, this is an event that the school has every year now. It is very, very successful. And not only one school has it now, every elementary school in the district have the same type of a fundraising event. And this school, when they had the fun run, the first year they were very successful. They've been additionally more successful every single year. And this is the only fun run they have. They make more than enough money on this fundraiser to meet all their needs for the year, plus they have extra. So it's really a wonderful thing that way. And just as an anecdote, one teacher who was there said it was one of the fun runs. This was one of the best days of her 20-some years of teaching, is this fun run, seeing the kids out there having a great time, being active. The teachers are out there being active, I mean, the principal, one year I saw him out there doing the chicken dance with the kids. I mean, just having a great time. They have a DJ, and it is just a fantastic, phenomenal event to support kids. And they also tie some learning things in here. They talk about how many laps were run, and they figure these kind of things out, and the kids have a great time. And again, saves more time for other things, and the money that's used many times from this fund run supports some of the healthy things that they do in school, you know, in terms of playground renovations and other ways to support that. So a really different approach for fundraising, very successful. And if you look at this model, addressing all those needs really helped to make it successful. And really the key from moving from model to action is collaborative development. And that's really what made this fund run successful. So it not only met the policy, but it met it with a healthy practice. It met it with all the needs of the students and got them excited about them. And I encourage you all to reflect on how our day-to-day practices can help sustain a school environment that supports healthy learning, student health, and really just the opportunities to be healthy every day. When we look at the school nutrition environment, we really want students to have opportunities to learn about and practice healthy eating through the access they have to healthy food at school, nutrition education, messages about food in the cafeteria and the school campus. In addition, we want to look at the same thing related to physical activity. What sort of messages do we send in our school for physical activity to support our kids to be active and healthy? So at this time, I'm going to share a little bit with some of the resources. These are resources I found very helpful putting this presentation together. The CDC WISC page, the AFCB page with their WISC model, and an article on the online library that actually looks at these models in detail for the WISC model. And then the Action for Healthy Kids wellness policy tool. And it is a free tool. It does require a login. So you'll have that there just to log in, but then you have access to the tool. In addition, I wanted to share 2 resources from CDC that are phenomenal to help you with your policy work. One, the blue book on the left-hand side, Putting Local School Wellness Policies into Action, gives stories from 11 school districts about what they did to accomplish their local wellness policy goals. And then the book on the right is Health and Academic Achievement, that has not only a book but a kit with a webinar and some tip sheets and things to use, that has a lot of good advice on health and academic achievement, becoming familiar with the research, linking health and academic achievement, having some real key research-driven messages you can use, has some actions that your group can take to put in your action plan, and has a PowerPoint presentation, which I noticed is very short but comprehensive, on making the case for health, specifically healthy eating and physical activity and academic achievement. So if you need some assistance in convincing people, this will help you with. I have a snapshot of the CDC webpage on health and academics. Again, this is where you can get downloads of these publications. And I have a picture of the CDC fact sheet for health risk behaviors and academics. So there are 6 total fact sheets. One's an overview. The others address specific health risk behaviors, including alcohol and drug use behaviors, physical inactivity, unhealthy dietary behaviors, sexual risk behaviors, tobacco use behaviors, and unintentional injury and violence-related behaviors. You can get these fact sheets from the CDC webpage that was shown in the slide before, or the link that's shown on this page. Another resource you may find helpful are some wellness policy research briefs that CDC collaborated with Bridging the Gap to put together, and including overview of wellness policies, school nutrition environment, physical activity and physical education, recess, access to water, marketing and promotion of foods and beverages, and addressing weight status measurement in schools. And lastly, I want to show the Action for Healthy Kids resources. All our resources are free. We support healthy foods and adequate physical activity. And we have materials, toolkit, technical assistance, and also financial grants. In fact, we're getting ready to open up our window for our next cycle of grants. So that is something to look for on our website. And we have state coordinators in 24 states to assist our grantee schools. And then our wellness policy tool for work with your wellness committees and your school health teams. And I also wanted to show our tip sheets which we have available online. This is just a sample of some of the materials you can download. And since I used fundraising as an example, I put our fundraising tip sheets up here. I know you can't read them because this is just a view to show you what they look like, but you can download these and use these as well in your own school, with your parents, with your administrators, with your wellness team in terms of taking things out of here. And you are free to take little snippets out of this and put this into wellness newsletters or school newsletters or on your website. So you can feel free to use this information that way. So at that time, this gives us about 10 minutes for questions. I want to say thank you to you all for your attention, and I'll open it up if we have any questions, Lee.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jill. So we have about 9 minutes for questions, and let's see. You asked people for questions a little bit earlier on, and these may be related to that. What place do anti-bullying workshops for teachers and students have in the local wellness policies, and what funding is available for such workshops?
The funding one I am not sure on. That is not my area, but I know CDC does do some work that way, and I would look and see what they have, as well as your state agency, if they have any funding for bullying workshops. But in terms of the wellness policy, you can put bullying actually in almost all of the steps. If you look at who's on the team, do you have people that are versed in PBIS as part of your team? Do you have something in your policy on bullying? And whether it be, cyberbullying, or it be bullying on the playground, or different ways of that, are those policies addressed? And you can cross-reference them with your wellness policy. You also can look at those in your assessment tools, and the School Health Index, the full version on the CDC website, has questions related to that you can look at in more detail and really start to pinpoint areas. So if you start looking at the lens of the policy tool, you take your topic and think about how do all those little pieces fit in. And sometimes you may think, oh, there's not a connection. Then if you start looking deeper at it, you say, wait, there might be. And in many types of bullying, it may be related to a student's appearance or their weight. So that is an issue in terms of our health and wellness, and as I mentioned before, having those statements about acceptance and teaching that and having that as, things that are modeled.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have a lot of questions here, so I'll try to plow through. The next one is, did you choose to not include students and PE teachers as participants of the Wellness Committee because the rule is not final yet?
Did who choose, or can you choose?
I guess maybe in the when you talked about who would be participants of the Wellness Committee, maybe they were left out. Students and PE teachers may have been left out in the listing.
Okay, they should not be left out. So if I didn't mention them, I apologize. PE teachers and students are integral parts of the group that we're putting together. And in fact, okay.
Let me clarify that. Yeah. Do you have a listing or a website of successful schools nationally that are sharing their success stories in implementation of the local wellness policies?
The CDC book, Putting Local School Wellness Policies into Action, is one place I would start. Like I said, there's 11 stories in here that are great in terms of success, and they're from all over the board in terms of districts that have made changes. In addition, we do collect wellness policy success stories as part of our work as a CDC grantee. So we're collecting those as well, and I know CDC is collecting them from the other NGOs that have grants with them. So I'm not sure what's down the road with this, but we're looking at sharing those whenever we do education with people, thinking that, what, if we can match up stories or help people to move forward and say, district done it, we'll do that. So we're collecting them as well, and if you're looking for the book, look at that book from CDC.
Okay, great. And a number of people are asking if they're going to have access to the slides, and we will make those available in a follow-up email. So you will be able to find exactly the resources that Jill has been referring to today. Okay, the next question is, can you give some specific examples of who you can fit of how you can fit mental health into the wellness policy, specifically addressing depression and suicide.
Mental health is one that is challenging to fit in because we think about, food and physical environment, but you start looking at some of these screening type things that are happening. Paying attention in terms of step 2 with that environmental assessment. What do we have in place for our policies related to kids? And sometimes it's bringing a counselor or someone else as part of that team so that they can be involved in this assessment process. In addition, when you start looking at your wellness policy, think, do we have some type of policy that's looking at mental health? Do we have, policies? We have policies for different access for, dental care possibly, or uninsured students. So how do we kind of fit all these together that we have a mental health policy? And it may be that you put something in the wellness policy that, you're going to look at some type of screening for depression with your kids. Or it might be that you bring in kids that are involved in a club at school that want to work on mental health issues, that they can help with the message that your wellness committee is working on. So, a subcommittee that can bring it forward. And you can start, just basically in parallel thinking, how do we have a goal in place to address some of these issues? Because it's very easy to say, we're going to have a goal that we're going to look at, minutes of recess or something. But think about, can we have a goal in there that we're going to start identifying mental health by looking at these type of tools? Or we're going to have some sort of speaker come in to talk to students, or establishing a club that will help looking at depression. So you're kind of thinking again along the same lines, using this tool that you set up where you want to go for these health issues.
Okay, great. And this same person asked a couple of follow-on questions in a related manner. Can you do the same with school safety, emergency planning, and what about opioid addiction? Can you put these into the wellness policies as well?
By all means, yes. And again, it's kind of in parallel going through those. I just can tell you that many school board members are very interested in terms of school safety type issues, and they may ask for that information and data from administration. And from that, you can start to pull some trends and look at where you put in your action plan what you want to do. And sometimes there's a correlation. For example, you may find that if you have open campus lunch and kids are gone, you notice we have a lot of kids that are skipping the hour after lunch or tardies after lunch. Or kids are getting themselves in trouble in terms of what they're doing over the lunchtime that they're not in school. So you think, how can we change that type of behavior? And you think, it has nothing to do with healthy eating or closing lunch, closing campus lunch. But all these other consequences that happen when you start to do this is, some of those areas to look at that. And I would say track this behavior, because sometimes the behavioral, referrals and stuff you have can be related to things that you didn't think were part of the process. So again, using that data, use the process to work through the problems that you may see.
Okay, great. Here's another really good question I think that might be on a lot of people's minds. The person says, I see major holes in my local school wellness policy. They're not even sure if they have one. As a health educator, I would like to get involved. Where should I start? The school district?
The first place to start would be looking at, if you go to your school district, and if you can search to find the policy online, I would start there. Or you could talk to your school food service person and say, I'm interested in the policy. Who is the gatekeeper, or who runs the wellness committee? Find out when they have a meeting that you can go for a meeting and see what's happening. And often it's very interesting when you go to a meeting to see the interaction and who's there, and that may help you to address the whole, because oftentimes the people who need to be there are not at those meetings. And it's just, it's being very, conversational and approach it in a friendly manner rather than, going in and say, I want to do the policy kind of thing. Looking at how can you be there to help with what's going on. And looking at, again, the stakeholders and who are the ones who are the designees. Start with them.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think that's all the time that we have today. Thank you so much, Jill, for a great presentation. We've got just some general remarks expressing their thanks and gratitude for your session. I wanted to remind everybody again that we've recorded this session. We have Jill's slides. We will be sending a follow-up email before the end of the week to you, which will include the link to the recording, the link to the slides, and an evaluation for your continuing education. So look for that. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Bye-bye.